Welcome to Faith Fondue, a podcast featuring author and educator Haley DeMaria and teacher and blogger Ann Strickers. Faith Fondue features a melting pot of topics ignited by a flame, our faith, and guided by the Holy Spirit. This is the 5th episode of Season 5, and Ann, let's just jump right into the flame. What is hot this week?
Well, hi Haley, and welcome back to our listeners. I want to credit the Notre Dame Women Connect retreat as being kind of a catalyst for us reconnecting and speaking again. Our last episode was recorded. Haley, are you ready for this? On March 11th.
I'm afraid. I was afraid to hear that. So too long.
So, okay. Yes. But the reason that I got that kickstart, and we all need maybe a catalyst or some sort of kickstart in our lives. At the 30-year reunion, shout out class of 1996, we had the biggest attendance group in attendance for a 30-year reunion ever.
Amazing.
And yes, the Sunday morning, the programming is done. Sunday, you just go to the dining hall and people leave. But Notre Dame Women Connect hosts their annual Called to be Daughters of God retreat. This year's theme was Ordinary Holiness. The speaker is an author. She's also an alumna. She works in campus ministry. Her name is Meg Hunter-Kilmer. She recently wrote a book, which is the Notre Dame Women Connect Shared Spirituality Read. It's entitled Pray for Us, 75 Saints Who Sinned, Suffered, and Struggled on Their Way to Holiness. I'm really enjoying it. But that's, I'll get to that in a minute. At the retreat, one of the attendees said, hey, does anyone have recommendations for podcasts, something to keep them spiritually focused and fit? And I decided this was no time to hold back. I said, I have one. I said, I have it with Haley Scott DeMaria, Costa 95. And I just thought they would be the perfect audience. So here we are, we're back.
Here we are. And I am so glad. And I know I say this all the time, but it doesn't matter if a week goes by that we haven't spoken or connected or 3 months. I find myself thinking about you and our podcast all the time and wanting to get your insight on something, or maybe it's a sporting event that I would love to hear your take on, or something that comes from the Vatican. I've really missed it. So I'm really excited to be back on track. And of course, we're both educators, so summer should give us a little more free time that we can stay on track. But looking forward to diving in deep today and hearing more about the retreat and what you have going on.
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of have the bigger thing going on, Haley, right now. So why don't you share with the audience?
So a bigger, different changes. Bittersweet. So I've been at St. Anne's, the school that I love, that I've talked about for a number of years. My boys were there. I was a parent for 13 years. I've worked there the last 6 years. Last week was the last day of school. It wasn't quite my last day, but my last day will be June 30th. But the last day of school is always a time to celebrate when you're a kid. I remember being a parent. I loved having my kids come home for the summer, but was truly a bittersweet day for me. I love the school. I love the students. Mm-hmm. I love my colleagues, but also have some really exciting projects on the horizon that I look forward to sharing more, especially on this podcast as they unfold over the next few months.
Can't wait.
Yeah, so it's kind of a time of change for me, but I'm ready. I'm ready. I think this is the right time, the right place, in the right place. So we'll see. But yeah, big change for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I hope truly you felt appreciated. I know how much you give, and you've talked about this community many times. So they are a special community. I'm sure it's a loss for them, but I know, knowing you've left things in a really good place. So I do love all of the end of the year rituals and ceremonies. And we had 2 longtime faculty members retire, and there was such gratitude. Mm-hmm. So I hope, and I felt it being on the colleague side, like, I'm happy for my colleagues moving on to new adventures, but also just like, again, great appreciation for their work and just sharing the journey, sharing our lives.
Yes. And that is certainly what I'll miss, is the day-to-day interactions, not only with the students, but with my colleagues as well. And our theme this year, we have a theme every year, and our theme this year was growing in gratitude. So I did feel the appreciation of many families on my last day of
That's
school.
wonderful.
Yeah, still have some
Growing in
transitioning to do.
gratitude.
Growing in
Yeah.
gratitude. Yeah. Yes.
Something you will undoubtedly continue to do. I'm sure it's a good theme.
Absolutely.
I
Well,
like it.
and it's
Hmm.
interesting too because it was the last day of school. You had graduation. We do an eighth grade graduation, but oftentimes graduation is referred to as commencement, and commencement is a beginning. It's not an end. And so that's a little bit how I view this transition right now. It is the end of something, but it's also the beginning of this next chapter. So that's exciting.
It's such a great mindset. Yes, choosing to think of it that way. That both and yes, an end, but it is. So we will share more about that.
Yeah.
But as you were speaking, kind of like the everydayness of the work and being with this community, I was thinking about my 30-year reunion, and honestly, Haley, my favorite moments. So first of all, you have to ask the question, like, why go to reunion? And some people, like one of my friends, not from Notre Dame, said only the popular people go to reunion.
Mm.
And I could see how he might say that. Like it's, oh, I was well liked, and therefore I want to go back with people that like me. That might be some people's what drives them. Um, that is not. I would not say I fall into that category of the class of '96. We are a big group. We're 1,800 people. I had friends, especially from ACE, but it wasn't like I had this super hardcore friend group that I was just waiting to get back with. That being said, I really have only grown in appreciation of my classmates and who they are and their lives and what they've done with their lives. And truly, my favorite moments for the reunion was sitting in North Dining Hall because it's the everyday stuff.
Yes.
It's like, okay, there's big moments when you're a student at Notre Dame, whether it's commencement, whether it's a football game, and big football games, some great speakers, wonderful liturgies, but just that sharing a meal, like it just brought me back. South Dining Hall is under renovation, so we were in North, which felt very utilitarian. It's huge. I mean, just with the layout of campus, I do wonder if more people eat in there now. That being said, it didn't matter because it was just in those moments of, I did that for 4 years in a row. So,
and I love the theme that they chose for this year's retreat, Ordinary Holiness, because that's really where that's where we spend most of our lives. The most of our lives in the day to day are very ordinary. And there are extraordinary events that happen and milestones, and we certainly find suffering, community, faith, hope, all of those emotions are found in the major events, but it's really in the day to day that we can live out our faith in a meaningful way. We are not just called to live out our faith in the big moments, but in the everyday moments where we can be holy, sitting and talking and having a conversation and maybe offering words or comfort or solace or prayers to someone who is going through a major event. But I love the idea of just being holy in the ordinary.
Yes, and I took notes on this retreat, and I hadn't thought about it before, but yes, you're right. The majority of the calendar, the church calendar, is ordinary time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Meg made note of the fact that it's broken up into two sections, ordinary time, and one to designate for the other. That's how long it is. Most of our lives truly are an ordinary time. So reunion is not on a football weekend. Football weekends are not ordinary time. And I like that it's not during a football weekend because to me, there's so much hype. There's so much about the game and getting to the game and meeting up with people. And that's a lot. And it's in June, and you can stay on campus, which is very ordinary, which I did again.
Which is very ordinary, yes.
And yeah, when you're like, oh, I'm walking down the hall at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom down the hall, like that's as real as it gets. But it's more of an ordinary time that reunion takes place. There's no homecoming. Every ball game is homecoming. So we have to default to this other time. And then we have kind of run of the campus. It's like, it's like we're students again, just walking different places, meeting up with your friends,
Absolutely. So to pivot on that a little bit, I did experience some extraordinary events recently. we took my son, who just graduated from college last month, and his girlfriend up to New York City this weekend. We met my sister up there. We were in New York City last night when the New York Knicks won
Wow.
the
Wow.
NBA Finals, Game Five.
Yeah.
It was we watched. I said with about 1,000 of our new best friends. But it was what an extraordinary moment to
Yeah.
just watch these loyal fans who have been loyal literally my entire life since 1973, the year I was born, when they last won. Um, Kind of, celebrating that moment. And I'm not a huge NBA fan. I much
Yeah.
prefer college sports.
Right.
But my family is from New York. My uncle played for the
That's
Knicks. My cousin
true.
played for the
Yeah.
Knicks. So there,
Right. Right.
yeah, there is
Yeah.
some attachment there, at least some affiliation there. But boy,
You're
what
allowed to claim that, Haley, for sure.
maybe.
As a sports moral place, you got it. Yeah.
But oh my gosh, what an extraordinary moment to just again. I was excited to be there, but what I really loved was just being witness to so many people's pure joy.
Yeah.
And that was it was infectious. It was really fun. It was fun to be there at that
Yeah.
not ordinary moment.
Yeah.
But what a neat
Now,
thing.
did you watch USA defeat Paraguay too?
So we
Just
did.
because,
So yes.
okay.
So that's the other extraordinary thing going on right now is the World Cup. It's the largest sporting event in the world, and it's right here in our country. So Brazil played Morocco in New York
Mm-hmm.
on Saturday. So there were many fans, from many Brazilian fans and Moroccan fans in Times Square in the city, which was really fun again to kind of be around and just be part of their really loyal dedication to their team and their country.
Yeah.
That was really fun to see. So we went and saw a play Friday night, and my brother-in-law
Because you love doing
because
that.
of course we
Yes,
do,
we know.
and so
Yeah.
most of
Yeah.
us did that, but my brother-in-law and my nephew were in charge of finding a place for us to watch the second half of the USA men's soccer game. So we did do that together, which was again fun to celebrate with, just be part of the moment, but fun to be
Yeah.
with family, fun
Yeah.
to be with a whole bar full of soccer
Mm-hmm.
fans who probably are never
Yeah.
soccer fans except for once every 4 years, but hopefully that will change. But yes, into the World Cup, enjoyed that Friday night, certainly enjoyed watching the Knicks win last night.
Yeah.
And again, sharing in others people's joy it's
Yeah.
contagious.
It is. I mean, it's almost formulaic. We know this is true, that sports bring people together. You
Mm-hmm.
can't, but it's just time and again, it proves to be true. My mom's caregiver is from Liberia, and she watched the game with my sister and my dad. She knows a ton about soccer. One of the U.S. soccer players, his father is from Liberia, where he was the leader. I mean, like what a small world, right? And they were
Yes.
hugging and clapping, and yes, it was just so awesome to see, right? Connection through sport.
Absolutely. So the other
Loved
thing
it.
that was really interesting as we move into our spiritual stew is when we were talking about this trip to New York and what we wanted to do and where we wanted to go. Going to Ground Zero came up, and my son had not been down there, and so
Okay.
talking about what that looked like and what that meant. So on Friday, so I know you know this, and probably most of our listeners do too, especially if they were at Reunion this weekend or this past weekend. Notre Dame has what's called Faith Fondue, and it is the gospel that's sent out every day at 4 a.m. It arrives in my email box, and there's always a reflection. And I try to read it every day. I'm usually pretty good at it. But on Friday, the gospel was from
Mm-hmm.
Matthew,
Mm-hmm.
and I read it, and then when I scrolled down to see who wrote the reflection, I saw that it was Father Malloy. So Monk Malloy wrote the
Yep.
reflection on Friday. Of course, he was the president of Notre Dame when Ann and I were students there. He's president emeritus now. He still lives on campus. He still teaches. Just a good friend and an amazing priest and human being. And what he shared in his reflection was that Friday's gospel was the same
I
gospel
know.
from 9/11/2001. So it was the gospel that was read at the Mass on South Quad, where there were 10,000 people coming together in really what was the only thing we knew how to do, was to come together in community on that really, really difficult day and pray. But I thought, first of all, I get excited when I know who's written the reflection. That's really fun for me. And
Yeah.
I've written a couple of them in the past, and people reach out to me when they read them, and I love that. So if I do know someone who's written one, I always make sure that I reach out to them, because that was really meaningful to
Yeah.
me. But just
Yes.
having
Good
all of
point.
that come together as I'm on the train to New York, we're planning this
Wow.
event. It's Father Malloy, Monk, sharing his words and his reflection on the gospel that day. And
Mhm.
it was one of those moments where you think, or you feel even, I'm not even sure it was an actual thought, I'm right where I'm supposed to be right now. And
Wow.
I'm reading
Yeah.
this at a moment when I'm supposed to read it and reflecting on it in a way that I need to reflect. And it's, the gospel talks about Jesus saying, come to me and I will give you rest.
Yeah.
That's a little bit where I am right now, even, with leaving St. Anne's and knowing that I do have these exciting events coming up, but I also, I have some, health things to take care of. And so making sure that I am taking care of myself
Yeah.
and giving myself time to rest.
Yeah. What a beautiful story. People talk about all the time these full circle moments, but they are really worth sharing. So that's, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And
Mm-hmm.
a friend from Reunion had posted it on her Facebook page, and we had a great conversation at Reunion. So I read it and I thought about that, because McCoy said that was one of like the two most meaningful experiences of his presidency. And when
Yes.
I was on South Quad, I looked at the expanse of South Quad, and the campus keeps changing, right? So your point of view is always kind of, I don't know, recalibrating. And I saw that flagpole, and there wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
flag up, but I just thought about the students gathering there, and that would be the only place that he would know. That the school would come together, and then the other meaningful part of his presidency was, I think, tending to you and your team in light of the bus
Yes.
accident.
Yes, he does share that 9/11 was the most memorable time, not in a
Yeah,
good way, but the most impactful. And then
yeah,
certainly caring for all of us as teammates and
yeah.
swimmers, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and to his credit, that's where he's a priest, and priests can be they're ministers and spiritual leaders, and he stepped right into that. So
Yes, he did.
we don't even need to grow in gratitude for Father Malloy. We are grateful. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, I'm pretty grateful for this homily that I heard yesterday. Went to mass so I'm at my parents' home in the summer, here with my mom, who is just in her final chapter, a few days of her life, and we're all together, which is such a gift. But I did go to mass with a high school friend, and it was really special. And the priest was super dynamic, and I love a mass that, I've said this before, that kind of flows and just keeps moving, which it was. And he said, hey, who here's visiting? Sometimes people like don't want to admit, and this guy raises his hand and he said, where are you visiting from? And he said, Walnut Creek. It's the town next door. So everyone was laughing. And then he said, anyone else? And then he says, who's going on a summer vacation? Is anyone going to a spa? And we're like, nobody really said anything. Well, you go to a spa for self-care and to be pampered and being taken care of. He's like, but let's look at this gospel with this idea of spa, and Jesus offering his own kind of spa. And he made it into an acronym for seeing, praying, and acting. And so in the very, first part of this gospel, right, this is Jesus calling the 12 disciples. He says, at the side of the crowd, his heart is moved with pity, because they were troubled and abandoned, as sheep without a shepherd. And, he's calling those among him to serve others, who become the apostles. But yeah, this, like, noticing people maybe suffering or in need, or, need help or whatever it is, but then praying about it and then acting. And I just thought, I can remember that.
Absolutely.
That speaks right to me. To me, that was, the liturgy of the word really nourished me. It was such a nourishment. We have the Eucharist, but there's that stew, right? That spiritual stew. It was hearty and it was very practical.
Well, and I love first of all, there's nothing better than a homily that you can relate to. And
Right.
while I'd like to think that I can relate to something in all homilies, and that's usually fairly true, but some resonate more than others. And I love how he approached the idea of asking about a spa and mentioning a spa. And of course, for most of us, that is, it sounds like a really great thing. And certainly the self-care is important. But then when you realize when we see something and we take the time to pray about it and then act on it, that is a form of self-care. Even though it might be something that we're doing for others. I know you feel this way. I feel this way. I think when people are in the practice of reaching out and doing things for others, yes, it can be exhausting at times, but it is a form of self-care. It does nourish me, and that's a great way to look at it. I too will remember that acronym.
But it's good. And it was almost funny because it
Sure.
was probably 98 degrees out. So the notion of a spa sounded so uncomfortable. And so he's like, well, I know it feels like a spa out there. I'm like, yeah, more like a sauna. But, it is true to when we doing service for others, yeah, we get nourished as well. So another great way to bring that home. Maybe that's another letter. Spas. Yeah.
Spas. Yeah.
So, see, pray, act. Well, the act is the service, but yeah. So
Okay. Well,
yeah.
we can think of a final action.
No, you got it.
I think
Yeah,
he's got it.
yeah, yeah.
So, Anne, what do you have coming up? I know, is school out for you yet?
Yes, so
Okay.
we finished Memorial Day-ish.
Hmm.
Memorial Day marks our finals. We had graduation. So I was at my reunion and yeah, Haley, I kind of mentioned this. I'm here with my family.
Day to day.
So
Perfect.
yeah,
Where
we're
you
working
should
day
be.
to day and yeah, it's so far we're getting along and making the most of our time with our mom
Hmm.
and her caregivers and just all you can do is just, I mean, I truly have told my mom, I've said everything I needed to say to her. And I've just said, I miss you. I miss our adventures. I am so grateful. And she's like, and she wasn't really talking. She's like, I've loved being your mom.
Oh,
And I said, I've always known that. And I just feel like that's like the greatest gift. I've loved being your mom.
yes.
And, for me to have always known that, that is,
You
I've
will,
never questioned that. So,
and you will have that with you forever.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
mentioned the word caregiver. There was Marty Allen. He was a manager, a head football manager at Notre Dame. I would have to look up his graduation year. I want to say it was in the 50s. He was almost 90 years old, was president of the Monogram Club for a number of years, served on the board with him. Just really, really, really wonderful man. He was head of the Ford Foundation, so worked very closely with President Ford in the
Wow.
1970s and chairman of his foundation. And just a really, really neat, wonderful Notre Dame man. And he recently passed away earlier this month. But one of the persons who was named by name in his obituary was his caregiver. And I've seen that before, but it jumped out at me again when I was reading Marty's obituary. And I just thought, wow, what a wonderful gesture to someone who came into his life later in life. This was not someone who he'd known his whole life. This isn't a lifelong friend. This isn't a family member. This isn't a spouse. But what an impact this person has made on not only Marty's life as he was transitioning, but on the whole family to be included in that way. And what a gift that must be to be a caregiver and to be the recipient of that caregiving where they are living out everyday spa. They are seeing what
Yeah.
needs to be
Yeah.
done. I'm
Yeah.
sure in their own way, whatever faith they are or not, are praying and discerning what do I need to do to help this person and help this family. And they're acting on it every day. That is the gospel in action in your home right now, Anne.
Yeah.
And what a gift that
What a
is to
beautiful
witness it.
connection. Truly, no, I truly like, I know people have thanked these people before, and I was on the other side. I didn't really understand it. I totally get it. I my aunt, who has been a wonderful source of support during all of this, both of her parents, she said, we are still in touch with our caregivers, my parents' caregivers, 7 years later. I mean, it is truly like they don't, and I don't know how this happens, but like they really love my mom.
Yes.
And I take such comfort in that. Like, if that wasn't true, I mean, it could be transactional. And I'm sure there's people that you don't like, but like my mom loves them and they love her. It's just so humbling, and it's such a gift.
It is a gift.
Yeah,
it is a gift.
Yeah, it is. Like SPA is the perfect acronym for that, because they all do have a level of faith. We've you know, one of them we watch mass on TV with. The other one has literally like songs on that are, you know, Catholic hymnals. I mean, playing in the background for my mom just to accompany her. You know, so yes. So rest in peace, Gary Allen.
Marty Allen. Marty Allen.
Marty Allen. Yep. Yeah. And yeah, prayers for his what a tribute.
Absolutely.
Truly what a tribute.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Well,
I think that's our takeaway, is really to live out SPA.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. I am not going to make it to the SPA this week. I'm not sure I'll make it this summer, but let me I don't know. I have to figure out how we say this. I will spa every day.
I know.
We need to figure out what the verb is, but spa will be on our mind every day. We will be spa-ing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's our homework.
That's our takeaway, is how to
figure that out.
Yes. Yeah. But thank you for sharing that with me and our listeners. I see, pray, act. It's so simple. Yeah, it's just like everything else in our faith. It's so simple, but it may be difficult to follow through on every day. But boy, all we can do is try and try our best and know that that's going to be enough.
Well, and each one has its own challenges, and that's what I loved. He asked very pointed questions. Like, you don't necessarily see everything, and we don't. Right? You have to pay attention. You have to look up, and then praying, you know, is discernment. Yeah. And then acting takes courage or time or ability. So there's a lot there. Yeah. So thank you, Susan, for suggesting 4 p.m. at Christ the King.
Excellent.
That was really good.
Well, and my other takeaway is I am going to order the Pray for Us 75 saints who sinned, suffered, and struggled on their way to holiness. I will need to look up when the shared read is, but let's make a commitment, you and I, to at some point in an upcoming episode, make sure that we discuss that once we've both read it in full.
Would love that. I think that would be really fun because, again, it's very accessible. She has just all these profiles of saints by theme, and none of them are long. So you can just kind of pick up one or two here and there. But it's all in their very unique and ordinary ways that they become, you know, mirrors of God's love. So I look forward to that conversation.
Yes, I do as well. And we will certainly be praying for our listeners, for our families in need, and for everyone. But we'll certainly be keeping you in our prayers. Yeah. And it's great to be reconnected. I look forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah. Thanks to Notre Dame Women Connect Retreat for that.
Amen. So.